On MTN, from dreams to nightmares.
He always told me his biggest fear was dying alone, so I did not want him to be alone.
We'll share the scary story of one couple's engagement photos that turned into their worst fear. The MTN 430 News starts right now. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this Friday. I'm Charlie Klepps. It's a day that should have been one of the most memorable ones of their lives, but instead it quickly turned into a tragedy. A Wyoming couple was taking their engagement photos last weekend near Cody when a horrific ATV accident resulted in the couple being life-flighted to Billings. Our Andrea Lutz caught up with the couple and learned what's to come from their devastating reality.
You could say Sydney Stambaugh and Skylar Peterson have a love story like none other.
We met actually through a mutual friend.
And dating for 3 years until Skylar bought a ring.
He asked the question. I said yes, of course.
But the day they set out to take these incredible engagement photos in beautiful Wyoming with photographer Kelsey Templin, their love story took an unexpected turn.
Headed up the hill and it got pretty steep, ridged out.
On Sydney's family's property near Cody, the pair took a ride in a side-by-side. But eventually the rugged path led them to trouble.
There's a tree in the middle, so can't go left, can't go right. So we actually were at a complete stop. He kind of got out to assess the situation a little bit, and there was a hole behind the downhill side tire that we didn't quite see.
The side-by-side rolled several times, and Skylar and Sydney went with it. Sydney managed to get out, coming away with only bruises.
Skylar wasn't quite so lucky. Foot got caught between the roof and the roll cage and kind of flung him around, and at that point he just decided to duck and cover his head and protect himself the best he could.
With her fiancé unresponsive and badly injured, Sydney ran for help.
He always told me his biggest fear was dying alone, so I did not want him to be alone.
And Skylar was ultimately flown to Billings Clinic.
He's got some facial fractures. He had a big laceration to the side of his head and face.
Dr. Lisa Merriman says with 3 out of his 4 extremities broken, the road to recovery is long. But he's in good hands as Billings Clinic is now designated a level 1 trauma center, ready to respond to emergencies like this.
When we know ahead of time that someone like this is coming, we mobilize all of those resources, and so we can have them all available when they get to the emergency room.
I mean, I knew it was bad. I knew it was really bad from the first time I saw him.
Sydney says as for what's next,
we take care of Skylar and we don't worry about anything else because we've got a great support system and then we'll figure it out.
And as for the wedding, which she says was planned for August,
we'll probably just send like an invite out, be like, hey, we still have this date reserved, but to be determined, kind of on that kind of basis.
To be determined, but not without a long road of recovery ahead and a great love story to follow. In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
Big layoffs were announced today at Riverstone Health as clinic lays off 9% of its staff to try and counter declining Medicaid revenue. A total of 29 employees learned they will be losing their jobs in mid-June. Riverstone says the moves were made to try and reduce the clinic's budget after losing more than $3 million in Medicaid revenue this fiscal year. The clinic also blames lower than expected patient volumes and rising costs as factors that led to the move. Riverstone says several senior leadership positions and managerial roles were also either consolidated or eliminated. Crews are still hard at work in Lewistown trying to repair the damages brought by this week's storm. As you can see from the photos, Fergus Electric worked through massive amounts of mud to try and restore power after heavy snow snapped rows of power poles earlier this week. According to their Facebook post earlier this morning, there are still 805 businesses and homes without power in the area, which will likely continue throughout the weekend. Fortunately, we are looking to dry out this Mother's Day weekend. For more on that, here's meteorologist Jason Stiff.
On this Friday afternoon, for the first time in a long time, we have a lot more clear sky than cloud cover around Montana and Wyoming. perfect timing too, because we have the opportunity to see both the Northern Lights and the International Space Station twice this evening. Details about that coming up. Also keep my eyes on a partly cloudy and warmer Saturday. A slight chance for some showers and thunderstorms on Mother's Day on Sunday. I'll have a complete 7-day forecast with more changes coming up in just a few minutes.
Primary ballots were mailed out today with Election Day right around the corner on June 4th. Montana's hotly contested Eastern congressional race is one of the most crowded in the country. But as our Jonathan Ambarian reports, it will become a bit clearer following the primary.
On Friday morning, a truck arrived here at the City-County building in Helena as counties across Montana began sending out their mail ballots for the June primary election. Election officials went through to find voters who changed their addresses after ballots were printed. They then placed them in dozens of trays, loaded those trays onto the truck, and took them to the post office. In Lewis and Clark County, mail ballots went out to around 34,000 voters Friday. That's almost 82% of the more than 41,000 active registered voters in the county. In the 2022 general election, more than 500,000 voters across Montana received mail ballots. They returned more than 375,000 of them, roughly 80% of all the votes cast in that election. Lewis and Clark County leaders said voters should start seeing their ballots in their mailboxes in the coming days. If you're expecting a mail ballot and don't get it by the end of next week, they encourage you to contact the elections office. Mail ballots must be received by 8 p.m. on Election Day, June 4th, in order to count. In the primary, you'll receive multiple parties' ballots and have to choose one and only one to vote on. All voters are going to receive a Republican, Democratic, and Green Party ballot, and those in the Western Congressional District will also get one for the Libertarians. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
We continue our look at the candidates vying to replace Matt Rosendale tonight as Montana's new Eastern District Congressional Representative. MTN's Russ Riesinger introduces us to Republican Stacey Zin.
Stacey Zin is a retired DEA agent and private security expert who says she's spent her career tackling cartels and terrorists. She's playing on that experience as she tries to set herself apart from a crowded field of Republican candidates in the race to replace Matt Rosendale.
The world's in chaos right now. I still have this fire in my belly.
And that's why Stacey Zin says she made the decision to run for Congress. She's a political newcomer with a lot of unique experience on her resume.
I was in DEA close to 23 years. I had started my career off on the southwest border down in El Paso, Texas. Then I was selected for a tactical team where I relocated to Virginia. I went back and forth to Afghanistan, did 4 tours over there. Then later selected for South America, where I spent 5.5 years down in Peru, but building relationships with the different foreign governments down there.
Zin, who is married with a child in high school, grew up in Texas. She became the first woman to be named Montana's DEA resident agent in charge after being transferred here in 2014. She puts border security, north and south, as the top issue facing our country.
If we don't have the security of our borders, then we are broken down on the insides, meaning we have nefarious people coming across the borders that will cause us harm eventually. Then also the national debt. National debt is out of control.
Let's cut FBI, I have to say DEAs and IRS, their funding.
At the recent Yellowstone County Lincoln Reagan dinner, Zin suggested stopping UN funding, as well as cutting the FBI and other federal agencies.
The way to get them in line is actually cut off some of their funding, limit their funding. And then maybe their upper management will pay attention and make, okay, we need to shape up.
She supports Donald Trump and sees his sometimes unpredictability as an asset.
You saw how Trump kept everyone on their toes. We didn't have any wars. We had relationships. We had strong relationships. We had wonderful relationships, as Donald Trump would say.
Zin also says she agrees with Trump's now position that abortion rights should be decided by the states. She believes her greatest asset is experience, not in politics, but on the front lines.
So I think I have a very good overview of what is needed, what's happening in the world events. I feel like I'd be able to add to the situation and be able to give good solutions to the problems that we have.
You can find all of our Eastern District candidate profiles right now on our website. In Billings, Russ Riesinger, MTN News.
The Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter received a $2 million donation this week. The funds will go towards their Pause and Rebuild campaign, which is seeking $12 million to build a new shelter on the south side of Billings. The contribution is seen as the lead gift for the campaign and will make a huge difference in the project going forward. Still to come on the MTN 430 News here on Q2. We'll learn about a new COVID variant that's taking over cases as we head into the warmer months. Plus, Jason will have the full 7-day forecast coming right up.